Welcome to the 11 Warriors show for Friday, September 27th, 2024. I'm Jason Priestis. That's Chris Lauterbach. Got our dude Garrick Hodge, 11 Warriors writer, joining the show. Garrick, how are you this morning?
I'm living the dream. How are you guys?
Living the dream can mean a lot of things. I mean, like, is that like...
It's a positive description, I'd say.
All right, yeah. I mean, that's a broad spectrum in my eyes. Could be fishing every day. Could be dating like an actress in Hollywood. I mean, there's a lot of things. That could be
I mean, we're covering Big Ten football. It's harder to climb a bigger mountain than that.
Yeah, speaking of Big Ten, U.S. News and World Report put out their annual Best Universities in America rankings, I want to say Wednesday. Ohio State jumped 2 spots, now number 41 in the nation. That's not just public school, that's overall, up 8 spots from 2022. The number 1 university in Ohio, I don't know if that's a surprise to anyone, but I guess I was surprised to see Akron dead last among large schools. I never really had a pulse for who might be last. I had maybe Toledo as my dark horse there, but not knowing a lot about those, Akron's last. OSU's the 16th ranked Power 4 school, but 7th in the Big Ten. And, Northwestern's always at the front of the Big Ten. They were actually tops at number 6. And then UCLA, 15th. Got USC at 27, Michigan 21. That's kind of the weird thing about inviting those 4 schools in. Like 2 of them are really good academic schools.
Yeah.
Illinois at 33, Wisconsin at 39, the next school that's in Ohio State's sights. Top 3 on the list, no surprise, Princeton, MIT, Harvard. I feel like you can throw Yale and maybe one more, Stanford, in there and just kind of blend them every year and pick a different top 3. Garrick, you're both younger than us and not an Ohio native. You don't understand how shocking it is to see Ohio State climb this chart, because when Chris and I were younger, it was like anyone could go. They were born from Ohio.
Needed a pulse and an Ohio address, and to say you took like the ACT, that was really it. As long as you took it.
They didn't even check the score. They just, you took it? Okay, good. We'll take it.
It is a little strange because I always view Ohio State as a prestigious academic university, because the only connection I have with the academic side is my sister went there for her doctorate in chemistry. So I, think of that and I'm like, damn, it must be pretty damn hard to get in there if you're getting a doctorate in chemistry. So that was the lone connection I had with academia at Ohio State. So yeah, you saying that you just had to show up with the pulse and take the ACT, make sure you did, is pretty surprising to hear.
It was a long time ago.
It's 30 years ago. Yeah, let's be real. It's a long, long time ago. And they, to Ohio State's credit, have kind of leveraged their football popularity, as some other schools have done, and kind of built some academic chops. Is your sister... Is she doing like a Walter White thing yet, where like she's Breaking Bad and like
all of her chemistry concoctions are legal? I can confirm that.
Oh, okay, all right. So she's making hair pills for guys that want to.
I have asked her a couple times what she's working on, and she gave me the whole "I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you," and I'm like, all right, stop big timing me, and then I lost interest. But
can you say who she works for?
I could tell you, Jason, but
you'll be next, man.
Is it three initials or anything fun?
Yeah, maybe.
Huge show today. Ohio State enters Big Ten play with a trip to East Lansing. There was a foul mood at the Woody Hayes earlier in the week. The impact of Chip and Locke. We investigate whether Michigan is in fact a service academy. And one of the harder "what's your price" we'll ever do later in the show. Looking forward to that. Let's start with the bad vibes at the Woody. Tuesday for the presser, Ryan Day kind of seemed tense, short, distracted, something up at his weekly game presser. And he straight out said, I don't feel good about anything. That's just my mindset. And this is something that Chris noticed. I know that, Garrick, I think you guys on the beat kind of picked up on that as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what you saw Tuesday in his demeanor?
Yeah, testy was a good word for it. I wouldn't say the vibes were necessarily bad, but they definitely were a little off. It was just a little shorter in depth in his answers than he usually is. And, if you're not an Ohio State fan and you hear that you don't feel good about anything, you would have thought that they would have lost they would have been that they would have lost 49-14, not the other way around, right? But
yeah.
No, I think it's just a reflection of the standard at Ohio State being impossibly high. And this is just complete speculation. I was just like, maybe Day is just a little more testy because he has to stay up a little bit longer crunching film now that he's not playing a bunch of cupcakes. So it's not exactly a meager workload anymore. That was just my kind of take on it. For all we know, something may be happening behind the scenes that we have no idea about. But no, I just kind of, along with a lot of other guys on the beat, raised my eyebrows like, doesn't usually do that. So I don't know what was up there. I guess they really don't like Marshall and think that allowing 14 points to them was just beneath them, I guess. But who knows?
Yeah, so I mean, you have that. You have the kickoff game disaster against. I don't think. Have you guys ever seen 3 OB kickoffs in one game from the same dude?
No, never.
I mean, that's hard to do. Like, it's really hard. The field's 53 feet yards wide. I mean, it's wide. Like, yeah, we had that. Jim Knowles didn't award a silver bullet of the game for this one. Had some guys grade out as champions, but said he had to be honest about it. Cody Simon, Chris said the same thing. Said, "quote I mean, we have standards. We want to hold ourselves to the highest standard." And we didn't feel like we had someone that separated themselves. And that's what we want. We want guys to be able to separate themselves and make big plays. No argument. That's a good philosophy. But what's your take, Chris? Was it the Marshall thing? Was it the kick? I mean, was the kickoff specifically from the Marshall? I mean, you saw Dave get into it a little bit with fielding on the sideline. He tried to tell him there was wind. And he's like, yeah, here's the thing. There's no wind, brother. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it's multiple things. I think it's multiple things real and maybe multiple things manufactured, right? I mean, the first half defensively it looked so bad defensively. I mean, I think there were people trying to figure out, okay, is Knowles doing this on purpose because he doesn't want to show anything? Or, oh my God, do they really not have someone behind Tyleik Williams that can do anything? Hey, what's up with these linebackers? The kicking stuff was a problem. So I think it's some of that, but I think it's also like, hey, we're 3-0. They know they've played. I mean, they have played nobody. When you look at, some of the stats around these teams that they've beaten, I mean, these are bad teams. And it's part because Ohio State's creating bad stats for them by crushing them. I get it. But these are teams that when we look back at the end of the year, they're going to be bottom, between 100 and 130 type, teams in ranking, in like total offense or, whatever, those kinds of stats. So I think that it's, hey, Big Ten play is starting now. Oh, by the way, it's on the road. I think, there's a level of getting your team's attention. I thought, Knowles, because Knowles, he's a little drier, I think, usually in the press conferences anyway, but even he didn't sound all that, thrilled about what was going on. So, yeah, I think there's a bunch of things. I think some of it is real, and then some of it's probably just manufactured. Like, hey guys, remember every week is a new business trip kind of thing, and let's not take for granted the Big Ten play is starting.
Chris, he might have been, Dave Knowles might have been disappointed like we were watching USC choke that game up against Michigan. So that could factor into it. But let's talk about some positives that we've seen so far, particularly Saturday against Marshall. January, Quinshon Judkins arrives from Ole Miss, two-time first-team All-SEC performer. Chip Kelly gets here in February to replace Bill O'Brien as the OC. And then Carlos Locklyn hired as the running back coach to replace Tony Alford not long after. And then earlier this week, Day said something really interesting about just kind of what Locklyn brought. And he said, quote, "The first time I met him was on a Zoom call during an interview. Chip and I had interviewed several candidates. I think it might have been 8 or 9 or 10. He almost interviewed us. He had a presentation ready. He gave his drills. I think we said hello, and he ran with it the rest of the way. And it was like, this is our guy." Day went on to say, of all the things I like the most, it was his mindset and mentality. And we got to talk to Travion Henderson earlier this week, and he had a lot of great things to say about Locklyn as well. And you look at what these guys have done, man. Judkins on Saturday, 14 for 173 and 2 touchdowns, a long of 86. For the season, he's 36 for 336, 5 touchdowns. 15-game pace, that's, 1680, 25 touchdowns, some ridiculous numbers. Henderson, 24 for 207 on 4 touchdowns on the season. His 15-game pace is, over 1,000 yards, 20 touchdowns. Bucks are 14th in rush yards nationally per game at 241 per. 6th in the nation in rush touchdowns with 13. And this is kind of how we thought things might go with these 2 star running backs and, Chip Kelly's play call. We're going to look at this chart real quick, kind of the offense last year to this year. You can see they were no huddle 80% of the time last year, just 39% this year, 29% gap runs last year. That's almost half of all runs or gap runs this year. And then screens, man. Screens almost doubled from 9% to 18% of play calls from last year to this year. So these are the wrinkles Chip's bringing. Ohio State knew it had 2 really good running backs in the stable, and we kind of expected some of this. But what's it say about what Carlos Locklyn's been able to do here?
Well, I mean, he's famous for the phrase "no soft batch cookies," right? And just judging based off Travion and Quinshon's stiff arms that each of them had, they're kind of taking it to heart. They're just throwing around defenders like ragdolls out there. It's pretty special to watch, guys. Just two running backs capable of housing any carry that they touch at any time. Both of them broke off big runs. I mean, Travion only had, 6 carries, and he still got around 70-ish yards. You basically have 2 top 5 running backs in the country on one team, and you have guys that don't care who gets the rock as long as the offense is producing. And we haven't even talked about that Will Howard is equally adept with his legs, and they have barely shown anything with that concept at all. So Ohio State, assuming that things keep on the trajectory that they are, could have the best running game in the country, and it's pretty fun and scary to think about for opposing teams.
It sure is. And Chris, they get along really well. Day had, some comments this week about watching film with the two. And he said, quote, "It jumps out when Travion is running and you hear Quinshon cheering him on in the film session. And Quinshon's running and Travion is telling him, hey, you're doing a great job there. I loved it during the meeting." And Day said, you're watching it and you're like, this isn't normal for two guys to be kind of competing, and wanting the, to have the rock as running backs, but to be really good like that.
Yeah, I think it started back from when they first got here, right? Like when Quinshon was saying, or when Quinshon was talking to Day, and Day was like, "Talk to Travion." I mean, that's who you got to talk to. And Trey wanted to, Day wanted to talk to Trey before he even entertained if Q would be coming. So yeah, it just feels like there's this camaraderie amongst them. And we've also talked about the business decision behind it. Like these guys have carried the ball a lot, or in Trey's case, had some injuries that where if they can help each other out, put a few less miles on the odometer, but still have really good production in what will be a longer season than either one of them are used to. Like it really should be a win for all parties. And I think they don't just say that. It sounds logical, but it's actually the way they approach it. And it allows them to be, closer to 100% on every run. I think, beyond that though, it's when you don't really have any contact until the second level, a lot of time, these guys are great runners, but it helps when you literally aren't encountering a defender until you've already gained 3 yards half the time. That helps. I think Kelly deserves a ton of, Chip Kelly deserves a ton of the credit there too. You're really just trying to understand how much of this is these guys are really good, offset by how bad some of these defenses are, right? Because the offensive line has looked great, but you still want to see them do it against an opponent that is, much stronger in the trenches. But yeah, when it comes to Quinshon and Travion, I don't know how anybody could argue they're not the best tailback tandem in the country, and they're, probably easily both top 5 runners in college football.
It's been fun to watch. I mean, especially for a Ryan Day team that's still zipping the ball around through the air, and to still have this kind of production on the ground has been really cool. And like you said, Chris, Chip's been so good. Like the counter that Travion scored on, that was one of the coolest counters. And it's just like not a typical counter. You have guys on both sides pulling, and all of a sudden, there's this gaping hole and he cuts it back and it's a touchdown. So ton of fun to watch there. Bucks were missing Tyleik Williams against Marshall. Was out with an undisclosed injury. And the defensive, the interior of the defensive line, you kind of touched on earlier, wasn't great in that game, particularly at the 3-tech spot with him out, and it feels like they kind of missed that a little bit. This is a guy who was a second-team Walter Camp All-American last season, tied for the team lead in TFLs last season with 10, first among defensive linemen with 53 tackles. Day did say Wednesday that he practiced. Tyleik did practice on Wednesday, and he did okay. And, Day said that was great to see. If he can't go, Chris, who are we looking at?
Yeah, Hero Canoe got the start. I think he played 26 snaps, something like that. Jason Moore was next in, but I think when you talk about production in that game, Tywone Malone looked the best out of those guys. So, a little non-committal this week of exactly what that pecking order could be like. I think they're leaning more toward it's Big Ten season now. They really need Tyleik to play. This isn't a Donovan Jackson situation where, probably could play, but don't need him to kind of thing. I don't think that's the way they're approaching this game, nor should they, with the way the linebackers play behind that defensive line when they weren't kept as clean and able to, little less free to maneuver. So I think you really want Tyleik in there. But from what I saw, I'm not a defensive line coach, but I'd be trotting Tywone out there to have the first shot after this, right? What do you have? 3 tackles and a TFL, and really he was going to have another TFL. The quarterback slipped in front of him, but was dead to rights behind the line of scrimmage on a play, maybe just a couple plays after his TFL. So I'd be giving him the first shot and then working the other guys from there. But hopefully it won't come to that. Tyleik will be back, and yeah, he may not play 70 snaps. I don't think that's the intention for any of the games, but they really, really need him to be back.
I think Jim Knowles kind of insinuated in his presser that if Tyleik can't go for whatever reason, then Tywone would probably start in his place. So yeah, like you said, Chris, I think Tywone had probably the best of the kind of depth three techs that were kind of filling in there for Tyleik, which is kind of surprising because if you go back to last year, we thought that Tywone Malone was going to be a big contributor down there and just kind of became invisible throughout the course of the year. So if nothing else, if you can take away from that Marshall game, he at least kind of put his name back on the map and kind of reintroduced himself to Ohio State fans. Like, yeah, hey, I was kind of a highly touted recruit coming from Ole Miss. Maybe I can contribute to this potential national championship caliber defense.
Yeah, to your point, I think he was sixth in defensive tackle snaps last year. I mean, that's pretty far down the rung to be now maybe your backup to Tyleik.
Yeah, and important to develop depth there, Chris, because they seem like Cade McDonald might be the guy at nose guard behind Ty Hamilton, but I mean, do they have someone as the backup now for Tyleik? And maybe that's Tywone. Maybe we'll find that out this weekend and get to see more of that. But be really, really cool if Tyleik would come back and play. I think that's the best version of the team with him out there. Some right guard drama. I mean, I think we have some right guard drama because earlier in the year, Donovan Jackson missed the first two games. Austin Siereveld played in his spot and looked really good at the other guard spot. Dade, for multiple media appearances, highlighted how well he played and how tough he played. And, they have Tshabola penciled in at right guard to start, and he's been playing there. But, they're getting Austin in, man. Donovan Jackson played, returned for the Marshall game, played basically all of the first team reps at left guard. And then at right guard, Tegra with 32 snaps and Austin Siereveld 26 snaps. That's probably a little closer than you hear coaches say all the time, this guy deserves to play. And sometimes it just doesn't pan out. They're like, I wanted to get him in, I just couldn't. But this is our darn near 50-50. Do we have a battle, guys, with the right guard spot? Or is this just something where let's get them both depth and maybe we don't have a clear number one?
I think it's kind of both. Day said this week that he's comfortable with both of them playing, and he thinks that they're both going to continue to get series against Michigan State. I think Austin Siereveld has kind of opened some eyes at left guard and, kind of earned some playing time. And I think the coaches are really impressed with what he's been able to do in Donovan Jackson's absence for 2 games. I don't know if they'll continue to rotate guys in and out. They were kind of amenable to doing that because they're both so maybe not young, but inexperienced. So they said that what they didn't want to do is hamper any particular guard's flow of the game. So they were probably going to keep it series to series based. But yeah, for you guys, I'm definitely interested in monitoring how many snap counts exactly each of them gets to see if one kind of pulls away from the other on a week to week basis. And maybe we won't need a weekly competition. Maybe it'll become clear this weekend. But hey, we were all concerned about offensive line depth at the start of the season, right, guys? And now, having 2 good guards is a much better problem than the alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because last week I thought that Siereveld would play because they said he would, but I thought it might be more of a ease Donovan Jackson back in. But I think what really happened was Jackson was definitely healthy enough to play 2 weeks before, so they're like, there's no reason to really ease him back in. But not being at practice, that was kind of my thought how they would get Siereveld snaps. I was a bit surprised at Tegras, who he ended up splitting with. But to me, that's a great thing. You've had Siereveld play on the left and prove he can do it. He's playing on the right side and proving he can do it because he's clearly the 6th man on the interior, or at least at the guard spot. So I think that's good. But yeah, I think it'll just continue to be a competition to your actual question, Jason. I think they'll continue to kind of split this way until one guy separates. And then when that happens, I think that guy's going to get almost all of the snaps kind of thing and be maybe more of a mop-up duty situation when that backup would come in, because you do want continuity. There's a lot of positions where you want to rotate guys in and keep them fresh. Defensive line, even as a counterpart to the offensive line. But man, feels like offensive line, continuity, communication, that kind of thing. You really want to find 5 dudes and hope that they're healthy and run them out there for the bulk of the meaningful snaps together.
Absolutely. And while you can develop some depth, which looks to be what they're doing, but something to keep an eye on over the coming weeks is who might emerge at right guard. I'm such a nickname junkie. I don't know if you guys caught this, but Jeremiah Smith met reporters earlier in the week And, he was said some cool stuff that, that Will Howard's pick against Marshall was his fault. He didn't get the proper split, I think he mentioned, which is wild because live, Joel Klatt in the game was, kind of called him out for effort on the first part of that go route. But astute observers might have caught him drop a nickname that I haven't heard before, at least. I don't know, Garrick, you might have over there at the Woody, but he was discussing receivers in the room. He said, quote, "Big head B-Rod." So that's Bryson Rogers, and he's now Big Head from now on. And funny enough, that's Kyle Jones' nickname too.
I was going to say, I only knew of one Big Head.
So I know two big heads now. I know Kyle Jones and Bryson Rogers. You may remember Bryson Rogers as the guy who entered the portal and then said, "You know what? This is pretty nice here. I think I'm going to stick it out." So would love to see him get some run soon. Very, very happy to see he's got a nickname of Big Head. And
I Googled him. Garrick, you see him at pressers. I don't see him, but I Googled 50 different images of him. And I'm like, he doesn't really seem like he has that big of a head. So I'm like, is he cocky big head or is he I was assuming big head, but I don't see a giant head on him.
It was a pretty subtle name drop. And to Jason's question, that is the first time I've heard that. So maybe a real investigative reporter like one of us could ask Jeremiah or another one of the receivers of why he's called Big Head Rob. But yeah, I don't think his head's overly big. I mean, he is a taller receiver and it kind of stands out, but I don't think that earns you a nickname of Big Head. So I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't either. I do the same, Chris. I'm like, yeah, I'll allow it because I like the nickname, but it's not really. You know what, Garrick? If you could ask the first question of Ryan Day's next week's presser,
yeah,
Coach, we're trying to get to the bottom of where the Big Head moniker comes from.
Kind of hard hitting analysis.
Can you help us out,
Warriors? Yeah,
that's
right.
Called important journalism.
That's absolutely right. Ohio State enters Big Ten play Saturday night when the 3-0 Buckeyes travel to 3-1 Michigan State. Kicks at 7:30 p.m. It's on Peacock. Garrick, you'll be in the press box, so no paying for Peacock for you unless you are a current subscriber.
I will actually be outside on the field. Hopefully the weather isn't a complete colossal downpour like it usually is whenever we go to East Lansing, because I was talking with Jason in the pre-show, and I don't think we've ever been there when it's just been a nice, enjoyable day outside. So maybe we should factor that into the analysis, that just prepare for really uncomfortable weather. But to your point, Jason, at least we won't have to pay for Peacock to see it live.
Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that weather, because there's a hurricane kind of rolling up into Florida right now, and some of the, we always get rain from those all the way up here. 65 degrees at kickoff with a pretty much a 50% chance of rain. It's going to be watery all throughout the day. So stay dry if you can, buddy. Michigan State originally called the Aggies way back in the day, but they held a contest in 1925 for a new name, and they chose, this is amazing, the Michigan Staters, which thankfully wasn't chosen. I guess local newspaper writers had way more pull back then. Just kind of hated it and began using Spartans instead. It just kind of caught on and they just switched to that, as one does. Just go with what the newspaper calls them. Head coach Jonathan Smith, 3-1 in his first season there, 37-36 overall. Fun fact, man, he was a little bit of an Oregon State legend at quarterback. 11-1 and won the Fiesta Bowl. Was named Fiesta Bowl MVP in the year 2000, throwing to Chad Ocho Cinco Johnson and TJ Hushmanzada. So dude had some good receivers back in the day, especially for an Oregon State team. I remember that was the game. They just lit Notre Dame up. I remember that game. Line is Ohio State minus 25, opened around the same spot. So not a lot of movement there. Bucks have won 8 straight. That's tied for the longest win streak in the series, going back to 1975 to 1984. So another win would be a mark there. Last game, OSU 38-3 last season in Columbus. Last loss for Ohio State, this is still painful to even say, it was 17-14 Michigan State in Columbus in 2015. You want to talk about bad weather for a game? I went to that game. Probably the worst weather of any, because it was like freezing rain. It wasn't rain, it wasn't snow, it was freezing rain. None of my favorite plays are getting called. You lose to unranked Michigan State. Their kicker runs around the field like playing the air guitar. Just one of the worst nights of Ohio State football in my life. And that knocked the team out of, repeating as national champions. Absolutely loaded team. So Michigan State, again, 3-1. They had a big week 2 win over Maryland, 27-24, team that, might be decent. Lost to Boston College last week, 23-19. We've got to talk about Aidan Chiles first. And Chris, I think you had the best description of this guy as a quarterback. He said he makes things happen, but sometimes those things are bad. And that's the perfect kind of analysis of this guy.
Yeah, he's going to make stuff happen, and they need him to. I mean, he's young. He obviously has they feel like he's got a pretty high ceiling, so they're going to have to live with some of those mistakes. But he's a guy Ohio State's going to have to pay attention to. He was the number 2 quarterback in the portal last year behind Sayin, and he's done some things, but he's also thrown 7 interceptions, and probably could have thrown some more. But he threw for 363 yards against Maryland. He can run a little bit, so you got to pay attention to this guy. You've got to account for him for sure. And those are the types of teams we just saw it last week, at least for a half. And then, Marshall's quarterback got hurt, but kind of gave Ohio State a little bit of problems. So I'm interested to see how, it'll work out this week with this guy who's obviously a whole different level of athletic talent at quarterback than what they saw last weekend.
I think that he's my favorite Big Ten player to watch in the entire conference as a neutral observer, just because I call him a YOLO QB. That he's going to make 3 throws a game where you're like, wow, this guy is incredible. And then he's going to make 3 throws a game where you're like, how in the world did this guy make this throw? And it'll make coaches pull their hair out of their heads. But I think the Big Ten needs guys like this, because how many quarterbacks do we all know that are check down Charlies, or, it's put the fullback back there and put 9 men in the box and then you stop him. I think he's fun for the conference in the Big Ten. He may not be fun for Michigan State fans as they get really frustrated by his YOLO deep throws while they're trying to kind of settle him in and get some chemistry with the Spartan offense. But I can't take my eyes off him whenever he's just chucking bombs left and right. I'm like, I got to watch this guy. I hope they keep him out there for forever.
Just uncork it, buddy. You guys are a little more bullish on him than Mike Valenti, Detroit radio guy, Spartan superfan. Here's what he had to say. Well,
you are so fortunate as a fan that Boston College outfits their players with hamburger helper mitts instead of gloves. Because if they
Did Nate Carter borrow those?
If they had functioning hands, they intercept 6 passes.
Yeah.
It's untenable. He throws a second interception against Ohio State, you bench him. And you say, listen, love you, Lord knows the check cleared, but you cannot keep killing us as a team captain.
Yeah.
Some of these throws are heinous.
Hamburger helper mitts. Like, he's saying he would have had 6. He's saying if he throws a second interception against Ohio State, you bench him. Like, he just called him out. Like, so kind of like agrees with you in the YOLO sense, but it's his favorite team. So Garrick, you get to have I don't care if Michigan State wins or loses, as long as this guy makes brings me joy by some of the crazy stuff he does. Whereas this guy's like, I want my team to win. And that's where you might differ. He's going to get some help back. Starting wide receiver Jerron Glover's back this week. He had 6 for 84 and a touchdown against Maryland, and his only real action of the season. Still TBD. They have a freshman wide receiver, Nick Marsh. It's going to be a game-time decision. He missed last week with Boston College, but went for 11 for 232 and 1 touchdown on the season. 8 for 194, torching Maryland in that game. So someone to keep an eye on. He'll get some help, but I'm eager to see that YOLO mindset, and hopefully it backfires on him more time than it plays out for him. Offensive line struggling, Garrick. They have two guards out for the season already. Moved a left tackle to guard. Not bad in the run game, but that's maybe something that Ohio State can kind of go after.
Yeah, if assuming Tyleik's back in there and healthy, which of course is a big if, we'll see on Saturday. But assuming he's ready to go, I think it could be a really long day for the Spartans, especially because watching Jonathan Smith's press conference, he was really having an emphasis on trying to run the ball. And, if your interior is just depleted, good luck going against Tyleik Williams and then JT and then Jack Sawyer on the end. It's not going to be a very good day. I caught up with MLive's Matt Wenzel for our Across the Field article that we do every Thursday. And he basically said, well, I don't know what the scientific number is, but I've written at least hundreds of articles about Michigan State trying to run the ball successfully over the past couple of years. And it seems whenever they're in that just run situation, 3rd and 3, 4th and 2, whatever it is, and then they just run it, it just gets shut down. And that's kind of been the story of the Spartans offense. Even though they've had some good backs, obviously, Kenneth Walker, stuff like that. But besides him, they haven't really gotten the running game going, and it's really been a detriment to their offensive production. And I can't really see that changing. And, when you have a young QB in there like Aidan Chiles, who likes to have those YOLO moments, and of course he makes plays with his legs as well, so that's going to help them a little bit. But if you're putting so much pressure on this talented gunslinger that makes some inadvisable decisions sometimes to save your offense, and you're getting only a couple yards a pop every carry, I mean, it's just good luck against this Ohio State defense.
Yeah. Good luck indeed. And Day did say that they run a lot more 12 personnel under center, taking huddles than you probably saw the last few years with the previous regime. Chris, they have a decent defense, probably, not probably the best defense that Ohio State will have faced to this point. What's your read on that unit?
Yeah, it's definitely the best they've faced to date, but I don't know what it takes it doesn't take much for that to be a true statement, but I do think this will be a significant upgrade for sure, just in physicality along the defensive front and that kind of thing. They're decent, like you said, across the board, 14th in total defense right now, but you got a Prairie View in there. You've got some teams that really weren't great, but they got some guys to watch. Wisconsin transfer linebacker, Jordan Tanner is pretty good across the board. They get a defensive end that can play. I mean, this is a Big Ten game. Ohio State's going to win this game, but they're going to face a little more resistance in the trenches. It's going to be a little bit harder than it's as easy as it's come to them in the previous three contests.
Looking for things to watch for. First up, does Ohio State come out fast in their first road test of the season? Take the crowd out of it. Looked a little sleepy on defense to start the game against Marshall. Maybe a little sleepy on offense to start the game against Akron. What do you guys think? Are they going to come out and maybe put it all together for this one and take the crowd out of it? Or is this a game where maybe they're sluggish again?
Well, they're on pace, right? It's kind of the every other fast start track. So, slow start against Akron, fast start against Western Michigan, slow start against Marshall. So, rev up the engines. They're going to get off to a fast start against Michigan State. But
I
think the running game should give the Spartans a lot of problems, especially because Chips ran a lot of base stuff and a lot of vanilla looks. And even though they broke out the T, that was kind of fun to see, pay homage to past Buckeye teams that, gave old-time Buckeye fans warm and fuzzy feelings. I think that they're really going to show off, maybe not quite every formation that they have in their book, because those will probably come a little bit later against the Oregons of the world. But I think we're finally going to see what this Chip Kelly offense is supposed to be with this running game. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't say unleash Will Howard's running game, but at least use it a lot more than they have, because they've been very selective about how they've used it compared to his film at Kansas State, which has been a little surprising to me. I know that they want to keep that as close to the vest as they can for opponents with a pulse, but I'm really excited to see this running game, and I'd be surprised if they don't pick up big chunks of yards early.
Hope so. Chris, offensive line and their ability to negate sacks or negative plays. Sparty's got that defensive end you mentioned earlier, Bogle, man. He's got 5 TFLs, 3 sacks. Good test for the tackles.
Yeah. I think, again, it's what you want, right? You've got bigger contests ahead. I think even the national pundits right now are like, they look great on paper, but they haven't played anybody. Like, this is a chance for them to even, I don't say prove it to themselves, because I think these guys know and, believe and know that they're pretty good, but you do want to see it against, some better programs, some better defenses, and this will be that first chance to really go against people that were, some of those guys were recruited at the same level. I think it'll be a good test for them for sure. I think it'd be interesting to see what Kelly does. I was going to say the same thing, Garrick. I'm not sure if I think, to me, if Will Howard runs, I think that's maybe not a great sign kind of thing. If you feel like, you have to do that on 3rd and 3 or something, but that will be a pretty decent litmus test. I'm hoping it's another game where you see Howard with, 2 or less carries kind of thing. If it's 5 or more, then it would be okay, do they need to do this, or are they wanting to do this?
Well, if they can do the same thing that they did against the first 3, where you're running for 80 yards on a halfback dive, then no need to break out the quarterback run. Maybe it will be, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as here you go, Quinshawn, just run at 80 yards. But we'll see what.
I agree. That's why I want to see when it is 3rd and short. Do they feel like numbers on numbers, they can get what they're looking for, or do they feel like they need some other type of schematic advantage?
What about the linebackers, guys? Looked okay last week, a little pedestrian for that. For as good as that unit is, going to be better with run support, contain. How are snaps going to be distributed? What are your thoughts on the linebackers going into this one?
It's been a little disappointing how susceptible they've been to middle of the field gains a little bit, but Cody Simon's still working his way back from injury, and I think is still coming along. And Sonny Styles is still, this is going to be his 4th game at linebacker. I know he played all year at safety, but he's still getting his feet wet at the position. And, he's played safety in high school and played safety at college. So this is a guy that's still transitioning and getting his feels for the position. And, but I have liked what I've seen from Arvell Reese. I mean, the more snaps that guy can get, the better, because every time he makes a play, I just want to see what he can do next. And his athleticism and playmaking ability is off the charts, and it's really something that's brought a fun aspect to this defense.
The Sonny thing, man, it's great perspective. I'm glad you said that it's been 4 games, because I've frankly been really disappointed. And I'm not sure if that's because of the expectations that I had and maybe those were unrealistic kind of thing. But because some of the things I've seen, I felt like bad pursuit angles are like, does it matter what position you play if you take a bad angle? You know what I mean? Like, is it a bad angle is a bad angle in my mind. I'm not saying that's right. That's just the way I view it, versus like, they just asked him to do so much, to your point, right? You bring him in, he's young already. You bring him in as a safety. Last year they had him in the box a little bit, George, again, like there were scenarios like that. And then now you're saying, okay, you're the will. Oh, by the way, you're going to wear the green dot. You're going to call it's like, I want to give him every benefit of the doubt because he deserves it. They've asked him to do a million things beyond just switching positions. But when it comes to just reacting in the moment, I'm like waiting for the light to go off and this dude to see ball, hit ball. And I don't know, just sometimes some of these angles and things to me just look off. It looks like a guy that definitely is green at the position.
That's fair. Certainly fair.
It could still be great. I'm just saying, if we're being honest now, we're not afraid to call a spade a spade. Like, he has not looked great. When you throw in reasons why, they're very good reasons why. But so far, it's like, yeah, if Ohio State's going to win a national championship, the growth curve has to continue, right? It has to happen. He can't play like these first couple games, in my opinion.
Right. And very well could be in play. Long season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could very well be a much different guy in December and late November than he is now. One of my favorite parts of the show, kind of going through alums from these schools and roasting these folks or saluting them, because some of them are pretty cool. Dan Gilbert, you guys, pretty much everyone knows he went to Michigan State. Good old Comic Dan's, probably most famous for writing that letter when LeBron left on Comic Sans. Like, I get it, buddy.
It's too good.
I would have been hurt too, but like, man, you can't send that letter. I promise you we'll win a title before LeBron does. Like, how'd that work out? Like,
yeah, right, bro.
Not good.
Yeah, the Heat won a pair, could have won 3.
At least be a player and say that, not the guy that just writes the checks, like,
how many assists are you getting? Actor James Caan, man, you guys, 2 years at Michigan State, obviously remember from The Godfather. Evidently he hung out with mobsters while filming The Godfather. He's a guy he's from New Jersey or New York, but his Wikipedia page, I did not know this, says in 1982, the FBI intercepted a conversation between him and the mobster Anthony Fiato. And Caan had Fiato beat up Joe Pesci because Pesci failed to pay an $8,000 hotel bill, which is like, okay, didn't know Hollywood was raw like
that.
Caan
on the hotel, or was there any color?
I don't know.
Like, why did he care?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Was it like his buddy that owned it, or was it on Caan's card or something? Is that might have how it worked? That room was on my card. You trashed the TV and broke the window, man. You're gonna have to figure this out. Did not expect to read that. Is he still alive? James Caan still alive? He can't be. He's got to be dead, right? If he's alive, I mean, only the most respectful things when I'm talking about you tonight, Mr. Caan.
I don't know. I don't know.
TV journalist Chris, why don't you have a seat over there, Hansen? You guys might remember him from To Catch a Predator. Who knew that, like, the Big Ten Network does all these shows on, like, League. Like, do something on Chris Hansen. Like, give us something there, right? Actor Tony Heald, and not a huge actor, but he did play Dr. Chilton, the psychologist in Silence of the Lambs that Hannibal Lecter visited at the end to eat his liver, basically. So that's fun. But to me, the best alum from Michigan State, wrestling legend George the Animal Steele. Garrett, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but do you know who the guy is?
Not a clue. But I can tell you that James Caan died in 2022.
Okay, so it can't hurt us anymore.
Yes.
All right, we can talk some shit and not have to worry about James Caan coming after us. Good. George Animal Steele was a 80s wrestler, maybe early 90s, maybe late 70s. Had hair growing all over his shoulders.
He was a hairy dude. He was one that ate the turnbuckle. Was he the one that ate the turnbuckles?
Chew on the turnbuckles.
He'd like open them up. And
his whole thing was like he's crazy. Yeah. And he was an animal. So
he definitely looked crazy.
A lot of fans our age have a soft spot for him. You have to
Magic Johnson. That's my favorite State alum.
Yeah, we purposely don't go over the sports stuff unless it's like a tiny school because, like, I mean, Kirk Gibson, there's a lot of cool sports alums from Michigan State. Like, Gibson's like a famous movie star, played baseball for him, right?
Magic.
Hey, it's time for Rapid Five. 5 quick questions, 1, 2, 3 word answers, whatever it is. I'm going to hit you guys up with them. Got a few seconds to think and then rattle them off. Starting with this one. Who is the second best team in the Big Ten right now?
Still going with Oregon. I like their roster.
Yeah, same thing. I think it's Oregon for exactly what you said. They haven't looked that great yet, but they got the Jimmies and the Joes. They got the best chance to put it together.
I agree with you both there. If you're a defensive coordinator facing Ohio State this weekend, who do you put your best cornerback on?
Well, hopefully he's also my tallest corner, but Jeremiah.
I think I'd go Emeka first. Make Jeremiah prove. I think Jeremiah's great, but make him prove it. Emeka's, they kind of run a lot of stuff through him.
Yeah, I think that's not as a layup of an answer as I originally, because originally my first thought was Jeremiah, no doubt. But then I'm like, man, Emeka's seasoned. He's got, he can do most of the same stuff. Maybe not as big or as fast, but like he can do just about everything else. Tough decision to be a DC. I'm glad I'm not having to make that decision, because like, okay, I got one really good guy. Let me put him on Emeka. I got another guy who's decent. Let me put him on, Jeremiah. Oh, my third guy sucks. He's going to have to cover, Carnell Tate. Like, RIP, man. Good luck with that scheme. Will Ohio State have 2 1,000-yard running backs this season? Keep in mind, could be a 15, 16-game season.
Yes, but just barely.
Yeah, I think yes as well. Quinshon will have to average 60 yards a game the rest of the way if they play 11 more games. Henderson will have to average 72, so 132 between the two. I mean, it's not easy. I don't say it flippantly, but I'm with you. I think, they'll just get there.
And that sounds like your math. That's with a 14-game season, right?
I was with 11 games. Yeah, because it would be with 11 to go.
They're almost surely going to play 15. Yep. So, yeah.
Which drops those numbers to 55 and 65 for what it's worth.
Never happened.
I would have to do 55. 2,000-yard rusher same season? No. It's happened a bunch in college football. I actually looked it up. As of a couple years ago, it had happened like 86 times or something like that. But, Sonny Michel, Nick Chubb did it. I mean, there's definitely some tandems. Marshawn Lynch and whoever was with him did it. But it happens more often than you might think.
Fourth question. What's the best jersey number in Ohio State football history?
45. I'll just pay homage to Archie.
As far as dudes that have worn it, I think it's number 2. Chris Carter, Dobbins, Doss, Olave, Young, Jenkins, Lattimore, Shazier, and Pryor are a couple. I think if you just look at it depth of the number, I think it's 2.
I agree. I think 2 is the top number. But 45 is never a wrong answer given who wore it. And final question, the hardest of the bunch. What is the best flavor of Blizzard at Dairy Queen?
I'm basic, so Oreo.
Oreo's not bad.
I'm old, so my old man take is Heath Bar Blizzard. I always get some cackles. I'm like, Heath Bar Blizzard is freaking, that's it.
Heath's my go-to as well.
Good. So good.
I live with some Oreo.
It is? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always catching the hell for.
No, that's what I always get. It's got that good mix of like soft
Old
ice cream and really some
crunch.
crunchy shit, right?
Yeah.
Oreo's pretty good too, and they've got some good seasonal. Every now and then I'll get adventurous and get a seasonal. I'll get like a pumpkin cheesecake one or something. But Oreos are trouble. Just gonna say that because
it's one of the only good things about having kids. It's like, oh, let's go get you a treat. And it's like, Daddy's, I get them little junior. I'm walking out of there with a Blizzard keg.
Big Ten stuff, man. Some good stuff going on right now. Pressing question: is Michigan a service academy? We all watched that 27-24 win over number 11 USC Saturday, thanks to 290 yards on the ground. But quarterback Alex Orji, fresh off being named the starter, went 7 of 12 for 32 yards passing. That's the service academy thing's a joke, but that's a very service academy quarterback passing line. 2.7 per attempt, 26.7 quarterback. Like Ryan Day would resign that night if it's one of his quarterbacks did that. He's like, I can't lead this team anymore. Something's happened. Michigan's leading receiver in that game. 2 ranked teams battling it out in a great game. 1 catch for 10 yards. That was their leading receiver in that game. 10 yards. And
what'd you say? 2.7 yards per attempt?
Yeah, 2.7. I mean, that's something I feel like I could do tomorrow. Yeah,
Jackson Dart is leading the country at 13.1 yards per attempt.
A little different.
To be the 96th best quarterback in that metric is 6.5 per attempt.
And that's 96? Orgy's like the 5,000s.
He just can't. Saying has more yards on one pass than Orgy did the entire game against US.
Wow.
That's a good way of looking at it. Worth like a post.
He can't throw. Question. Do you guys think that Khalil Munnings is better than Donovan Edwards? Because I do. He looks way better.
It's hard for me to answer that because I hate Edwards. Because first of all, he's hurt my team. Second of all, because he said he was going to be a generational running back and transform the position and compared himself to Barry Sanders and all this nonsense last year. So even if he wasn't, I would say he was better than Edwards because I don't like Edwards that much. But he had a big game, man. A huge game.
Well, he'll go 1, -1, 1, 2, 3, and then 45. He's shown up in some big games too. I hate to say it, but he has shown up in some of their bigger games. But yeah, I mean, pound for pound, I think the Mullings kid, he feels like he's got a higher ceiling.
former linebacker over there getting carries ahead of the guy that's supposed to revolutionize the position.
Yeah, I do think you can catch balls out of the backfield too, but if Orji can't, he can't even throw it that far accurately. So that negates Edwards' effectiveness a little bit as well.
That's like a yard and a half past his range, those little swing passes. Like he can get it like 80% of the way there.
2.7.
But like Davis Warren, who they just benched to start Orji, has 2 touchdowns and 6 picks this year. The Wolverines are 128th in passing yards per game this season at 122.8. So yeah, they're basically a service academy. That's kind of where I'm at with this. They're Iowa with better tradition.
I kind of want to watch them moving forward because I don't really know what USC was doing in the first half against them defensively because they were kind of playing their base D, and it took them a whole half to realize,
load up.
Yeah, Michigan is not going to throw the ball past 10 yards. They're just not going to do it. So they moved their safeties way up. They didn't put any defender past 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and lo and behold, they did not pick up a single first down until that eventual game-winning drive in the entire second half. But, for 28 minutes, Michigan was shut down, just period. So they provided the blueprint on how to do it. So now, not every defense in the Big Ten can do that against Michigan because, their backs are still pretty good and their line is still a little shaky, but it's getting better. But the blueprint's right there. And, it's probably a fireable offense if any defensive coordinator lines safety 17 yards in the backfield now. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how even Minnesota this week. Like I think Michigan's still going to win, but I think that maybe Michigan only scores 17, maybe only 14.
That'd be sweet.
The blueprint's right there. I kind of want to see now that Orji's kind of the guy, and they kind of got that first look, how they look offensively going forward. Because it's not a very hard offense to stop if you have your angles right and your pursuits correct.
Yeah, that's a noon game on Fox tomorrow. Michigan's favored by 10. Seems a little high. To me, like really interesting too, is that like Penn State last season, Saturday against USC, like Sharon Moore is an offensive line coach by trade. What I'm seeing from him is that when he gets tight, he's just going to run the ball. So I hope, Garrett, to your point, that other coaches are like, like we know what they're going to do. And first of all, they can't pass, so he's got to do this. So, but anyway, I think he likes to run the ball. I think that's his thing. And man, I remember looking at their schedule before the season and thinking, there's some losses in there. And now it's like, man, you look at the rest of the way. They got October 19th. They're at Illinois, which could be, an all-timer if Burt beats them. Like, Burt would instantly become loved by Ohio State fans again after, 10 years in the wilderness. November 2nd, they're number 8 Oregon's in Ann Arbor. That's a really tough game for them. November 19th at Indiana. I mean, in August, I'm like, that's a win. But now I'm like, I don't know if that's a win for Michigan. And, of course, the 30th of November, they're here at Ohio State to end the season. So, you're looking at that, and they might only be an underdog in 2 games the rest of the way. Maybe Ohio State and Oregon. That's it. Probably be favored in the rest of them. I mean, they're probably favored over Illinois and Indiana, even though both of those are on the road, and Indiana should be ranked after going to 5-0 this weekend. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. It shakes out, man. It's been interesting to watch what's going on up there. Some other fun games in the Big Ten this weekend. Tonight at 8 p.m. on Fox, Washington at Rutgers. Start of the night's 2-point favorites, man, over the team that was just in the national championship. That feels really weird to say, but Shiano's got him cooking. You guys like Rutgers covering there?
I do. I think that Rutgers might even beat them by 7.
I like Rutgers too. This is like what everybody wanted to talk about, going from Washington all the way to the East Coast to play.
That's right.
Friday
night.
I looked it up. Can you guys guess how many hours the semi-truck driver with all their equipment has to go? I looked up from the campus of Washington to the campus of Rutgers how long it is because I was curious.
Is it like 5,500 miles?
It's 42 hours.
42 hours?
Yep, 42-hour drive.
Wow.
So that guy had to have left on...
Yeah, he's already on the road.
Yeah, he probably left on Tuesday.
Yeah. Sleeping in the back. That's fun. I mistakenly said noon, but it's 8 p.m. tonight. So it won't be quite as bad for Washington coming across the country and playing in like a 9 a.m. type kickoff for them. Noon on Big Ten Network tomorrow, Maryland at Indiana. Hoosiers favored by 7. Another game like in the preseason, you're thinking, that's probably a Maryland win, looking at it. But now you're like, Hoosiers going to do it, man. Are you guys agree there that the Hoosiers will cover 7, or you feel good about that? Or
I think so. It's still September, but September can't help the Terps anymore. But Indiana is really interesting, man, because it's kind of like a group of 5 all-star team on a Big Ten team. So I'm kind of curious what a group of 5 all-star team can really do over the course of a whole season. But, I mean, we've all seen the Coach Sig clips, and I'm rooting for the guy because he's a walking soundbite no matter where he goes.
He is. Chris, 7:30 NBC Saturday, number 19 Illinois and number 9 Penn State, both programs undefeated. That's a big game. Penn State minus 19.5. Chris, does that seem massive to you? I mean, I don't bet, but if I did, I'd be tempted.
Yeah, has it moved to 19?
Yeah.
Because it opened at 17.5.
Wow. Well, I'd seen 18, and then I just checked. It was 19.5.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. I know night game, I don't know if they're doing a gimmicky whiteout or whatever, but yeah, it's going to be I don't know, man. Penn State, I've been like a Drew Aller critic for sure, but he's played pretty well so far. They haven't, played the greatest competition like a lot of teams, but I don't know about that's a game I would just stay away from. Like Penn State's going to win that game, but yeah, I don't know if I'd be messing with the 19.5.
If you're giving me 19.5, I'm going to be really thinking about making an investment in Bird against Big Game James for 19.
The thing is, too, I think Bird's style of play on both sides of the ball slows games, or speeds them up, I should say. Penn State's not going to give as many possessions as they would against another team. He tends to play teams closer than they should be playing them. So it just seemed like a really big number. But again, if I were to put money on it, they would, of course, cover it, and I would lose the bet. Looking quickly at some fun national games. Noon tomorrow, ESPN, number 20, Oklahoma State, 3-1 at number 23, Kansas State, also 3-1. K-State favored by 5. That's an interesting game to me because the loser of that game is 0-2 in the Big 12. And, we're going to have to see some of this play out, these super conferences with no divisions, to kind of see how fatal that might really be. But I get the hint, I get the hunch that 0-2 early in September in your conference is not great in this modern game.
I'm going with Kansas State there. Oklahoma State's been incredibly disappointing considering the seniority they had on their offensive line and Ollie Gordon. I think Ollie is top 5 in carries on the season, but his production is just dreadful. And partly that's on him and partly that's on his O-line because there's just no holes there at all right now. But I bought into the Ollie Gordon hype, and they just look like a mess right now offensively.
Yeah, they've been mid, but Kansas State's coming off. They were favored by 7.5 against BYU last week in Provo, and they got smoked.
Provo's a tricky place, though. That's always whenever I see a big line there for a visiting team, I always get a little hesitant.
You're favored by over a touchdown on the road. You shouldn't lose by many, many touchdowns. I don't know what the final was because it was a 10:30 kick, but I know I took BYU because Herbie was the only one on the set that took BYU. All the other ones were K-State. I'm like, man, is K-State that good? They ran off, they let Will go for this quarterback that they think's got some promise, but God, he was terrible.
Avery Johnson, man, played for the Spurs, man. Put some respect on his name, right? Wasn't he a point guard for the Spurs for a little bit? I respect
him now. He won me some money, but yeah, they did not look good last weekend. I do think Kansas State will win this game. I don't know if I like the 5 or not, but I think at home coming off a loss, they definitely have some talent. I would, I'd probably take, that'd be a K-State money liner with parlayed with something else.
3:30 Saturday on the Peacock. Number 15 Louisville 3-0 at number 16 Notre Dame. The Irish are 3-1. Irish are 7-point favorites in that, and they've got that loss in week 2 to Northern Illinois, which is really bad. But they've outscored foes 94-10, kind of bounce back. That's kind of the Marcus Freeman model. Have one disaster loss, and does some stuff. We're okay, and does enough maybe to placate fans there for a little bit, but. Buckeye fans might remember that game from last season as the one that was I guess that Notre Dame win doesn't mean anything now once Louisville kind of torched them. You guys like the Irish? You like Cardinals there?
What was the line again? 7.5 for Louisville, you said?
7, Notre Dame favored by 7. It's in South Bend. That's probably why.
I take Louisville to cover. Jeff Brom always does pretty nasty work on the road as an underdog with point spreads. So I also can't trust Notre Dame offensively whatsoever. That Purdue team is one of the worst Purdue teams I've seen in a while. It's pretty dreadful. Yeah. But if you give up 66 points to Notre Dame, that's pretty unacceptable for a team that lost to Northern Illinois. But if you go to the Notre Dame message boards, it's not a very warm and fuzzy place right now, especially if you bring up Riley Leonard. Guy's a hell of an athlete, but the passing instincts just aren't there right now. And I'm going with Jeff Brom. I think Louisville's going to cover.
I like a Louisville cover. I think Notre Dame probably eke out a win, but if I would stay away from this one, but if I had to take it, I would take Louisville in the points.
7:30 tomorrow night on ABC. Just hurts that it's the same time as the Ohio State game. Number 2, Georgia, 3-0 at number 4, Alabama, also 3-0. Georgia favored by 2. It's the first time Bama's been a home underdog since 2007. That was against LSU that season. 17 years, basically, since Bama has been a home underdog. For me, it's interesting. I want to see how real Kalen DeBoer is. I think he's a good coach. We'll see a little bit more about how good of a coach he is here, because not a better, but I think that's a game Georgia probably rolls.
I am not falling into the trap of overlooking Georgia when they coming off a game looked like crap. Mm-hmm. I've seen that story before. I will not do it. I've taken the bait, and I think they have the better quarterback, and they're facing a worse secondary. I think Alabama's secondary is finally going to get exposed a little bit. They haven't played a team yet that can quite challenge them there. But if you look on the film, the Wisconsin film, there's guys running open. Like that, it's just a matter of getting the ball to them, and I think Carson Beck can get the ball to them. So I'm not underestimating Kirby, especially when he's 1-5 against Alabama, and now his biggest boogeyman, Nick Saban, is gone. So Kirby's had this one circled for a while. I'm going with the Dogs.
Yeah, I like Georgia by about 10.
Fun one, because like these teams have not played as much in the regular season as one would think over the course of the last 20 years. I think they have like 3 regular season matchups, which is nuts. Like, give us something better. But nice to see it this season. All right, folks, it's What's Your Price, where we dive into hypothetical things in life we would do for the right price. We're talking about fun, harmless stuff that doesn't hurt anyone or break the law, like driving 10 miles per hour under the speed limit for an entire year, or entering a professional slap contest. So what's your price? This week's question: how much would it take for you to agree to watch an entire season of Ohio State football while at weddings? And for the sake of argument, let's assume kickoff starts the same time as the wedding, and it's also a long 2-hour wedding. This is really impacting your ability to enjoy the Ohio State game. You might have your phone in the pew doing one of those things. And Garrick, I know you're an objective reporter. You didn't go to Ohio State. You didn't grow up here. We'll use the Chicago Bears for you and assume they play on Saturdays to make this work. How much for an entire season, guys, to have to watch your favorite team's games while at a wedding?
Chris, you go first. I need to think about this.
I always have some clarifiers for Jason to make it interesting. How big's we got at least like a 42-inch TV somewhere? Are we really on our phones?
You're in the church. No, you're in the church. You got to you have it like in the pew, and you're like,
oh, you're saying not even like reception. You're saying wedding.
The wedding's 2 hours. Then you got to go to the reception.
2-hour wedding. First,
you got like a 25-minute drive to the reception. Like, it's just your worst nightmare for watching your boys.
Yeah. We're man, we in a million. We
a million. Wow. Wow. I'm way under that. I'll tell you that.
No, I'm under that too. But I think I'm 6 figures. I'm in the 6 figures. But
yeah. I mean, think of how grumpy you're going to be. Like, your friends will hate you because you're probably pissed off at their wedding. Like, probably got up and objected, said some crazy stuff.
Well, I would hope. I mean, if I'm at a wedding with people that I know, they're also going to be pissed. So I'm probably going to get a little bit of leeway.
I have 2 follow-up questions. Follow-up question number 1, are these cool friends or are these non-sports loving friends?
They scheduled their wedding on the Ohio State Michigan game.
And I see where you're going. You're like, can he put a TV up behind the altar? No, you got to watch it.
Or like if they catch me, if they catch me looking at my phone, are they going to be like, yeah, I get it, man? Or are they going to be like, God, what a dick? But number 2, does the reception at least have open bar?
Yeah, we'll give you an open bar.
All right, in that case.
That doesn't matter, though. The game is during the wedding. You can drink afterward and celebrate, I guess.
Yeah, but I can always catch the last hour of the game, like with an open bar. Well, you're asking me to take a year off of watching the Bears, which is honestly probably good for my overall health.
I'm trying to do you a favor, honestly.
So
I'm throwing out the signals.
I'll only ask for $70K.
$70K. I think I'm around that neighborhood. I mean, Chris, I know you're probably higher from what you said earlier, but
but it's not a million. I'm like,
would you do it for 50? Like, for real? Like, I would consider 50. Like, $50,000 not laughing money, man. It's like $50,000
a whole season.
And you're gonna be, you'll have it with no volume, so you'll have an idea what's
like $5,000 a game.
Yeah, I mean,
right, ish.
When you put it like that, I mean,
Can I like opt in if like the Bears get off to like an 0-3 start and then I just
No, you're all the way in. I mean, dude, it's harder for us. We got a great team. The Bears are a great team. Like, our prices should be double yours, Garrett.
Hey, I said 70, but if you put 50K in front of my face, I'd really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, that would be like a good trade for any Bears fan on earth. For an Ohio State fan, it's like a much harder quandary.
Yeah, and remember, we say always, Garrett, like there's no taxes, there's no nothing. Like whatever the number is free and clear. So yeah, 50 is sounding a little more realistic.
I mean, it's like,
so it's a 2-hour wedding.
Yep.
And the wedding starts at kickoff.
Yep.
So you are going to see the last hour and a half of coverage.
Yeah.
So you're going to see midway through the third to the end of the game. Not the reception, probably, but
you got to drive the reception. There's going to be speeches. You're going to get in the bar line. You're going to see some of it, but it's probably not the full extent of what remains.
Yeah. But I think winning time, though, all that bullshit's going to be mostly done, and it's going to be reception time for the most part. So
I think what I would try and do is I would try and record it and then just like not bring my phone to the wedding and then just drive home. And I mean, if I'm going to a wedding with friends that don't care about sports anyway, they're probably not going to be giving me updates every 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're going to have to put airplane mode on, though. You know that, right?
You're going to have to throw your phone in the toilet.
I just want to bring my phone to the wedding.
Yeah.
I just want to bring my phone to the wedding. And then I'd drive home and then I'd watch the game. And then I'd collect my phone. I feel like I figured out the cheat code to this.
I mean, you're still missing it live. Does that hurt at all to miss it live?
I mean, yeah, it hurts, but
you
can work your way around it.
And we all feel the same way. We're like, yeah. Because I was just thinking, like, even if you did that plan, which is a great plan, like, it would bother me not to see it live. I feel like I'd be missing out on FOMO. You know, I'd be like, I know something's happening right now, and I don't know what it is.
And half the fun of watching games is like shit texting your friends about it. Like, oh my God, I can't believe they're so bad. Or, oh my goodness, we're so good. We're going to win the Natty, whatever. But so that missing that part of it would be really not fun. But
I think I'm in for 50. 50 is my final number.
I'm going 50.
If anyone has 50K and they want me to go to weddings for the entire Ohio State football season, I will do that.
Honestly, I think I'm lowering it to 45 because I like my DVR idea. So I'm going 45.
A little DVR discount in there. I love
$3,500 a game, basically, if you're talking about an Ohio State season-ish.
For Garrick, that's at least the Bears going to have 17 games, no playoffs. So at least we know it's 17.
50 sounds good. I'm like, man, would I do it 1 year? Could you pick the year, like going into it, like it's a down year in Ohio State?
Yeah, that would be nice. Just assume it's this year.
Just assume it's this year.
Yeah. Transfers. I'm up to 200K.
49. I'll do it for 49.
49. And then the follow-up question is, what would your price be if you were 22 years old? Because it might be like $3,500. You know, that was $1 billion back then, you know, to a 22-year-old.
Yeah, it'd definitely be less than 49.
Yeah.
15, maybe, probably something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd
buy a car, especially if it was back then.
I'm thinking at 22, I'd probably come in under 10,000. You know, I'd probably be mad and like very grumpy about it, but like, dude, 10,000 at age 22 might as well be $1 billion.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Like, there's really no rewatching it later kind of thing. Like, there DVR. I guess you could maybe VHS it or something.
Yeah.
I'm also realizing I would have to dress up really nice for 17 straight weeks. So that's
you have some money coming though, man. You could get a tux, buy one tux, and then wear it.
Well, it's not about affording the outfit; it's about that I have to be in a suit and tie.
And don't forget, you got like 2 hours of prayer too. You're like the pivotal third down. They want to have everyone's heads to bow, and you're like, not now, dude. Please, not now. So drop your own price in the comments if you want. And thanks so much for joining us. Garrett, thanks for sitting in with us, man. We had a blast. As always, be good to each other. Take care of each other. Go Bucks.